Hello, I'm Greg Allison, author of Historical Theology. Sorry for being late, I just finished getting my hair cut. I was asked to come, represent, and talk about Luther's contributions to justification by faith. Recently I just met a wonderful individual by the name of Jeremy Crow. He sent me his paper that he had just written, and I'm going to use it to describe Luther's contribution to justification. Martin Luther, a German theologian, felt God wanted the church to return back to the teachings of the Bible. Luther felt that the doctrine of the indulgences took away from the works and power of Christ, more specifically, God's work in justification. It took the power to forgive out of Christ's hands and placed it into the popes. The church began to preach a doctrine that was an evolution of man instead of sharing the beliefs consistent with the Bible. Luther felt the doctrine of indulgences would do the opposite of what the Bible urges us to do in regards to the poor. The Bible says to give to the poor. Luther felt that this would force the poor to feel like they would have to spend the minimal money they have on indulgences on something that God had given them for free. Luther nailed his 95 Theses to the door of the Catholic Church, which was a common practice in the early church, because they were willing to debate something. And what was up for debate was Luther's justification by grace through faith alone. The sinner is justified before God, not by his moral behavior, but by something else. He must acknowledge his self-centeredness, his sinfulness, thereby he justifies God, who has called him a sinner, and he can claim the forgiveness that God has offered to sinners. Justification takes place by faith, because the sinner appropriates by faith the divine promise of forgiveness as it is found in the gospel, and also because it is contrary to outward experience. When Luther stated his belief in justification, it totally changed the doctrine. Luther strongly believed that justification is God's act of taking away the shame and price of sin, while also declaring a sinner righteous through Christ's atoning sacrifice. Luther's theology came from Ephesians 2:8, which states, "For it is by grace you have been saved, through faith, and this is not from yourselves, it is a gift from God." Luther's justification breaks off the view from the Roman Catholic Church that it is by works also that you are justified. The most important work of all to Luther was faith. Luther did not reject good works. He wanted the good works that Christians did to be out of love for one another, not for one's own righteousness. The Roman Catholic Church belief on justification would put us under the law of God, which our works would make us justified. Luther's justification brought us under the grace of God shown through Jesus Christ's death and resurrection. For Luther, all other good works would stream from faith. The Reformers agreed that this doctrine was the foundation of the Reformation, in fact the chief doctrine of Christianity, and now it was a point of difference between the Protestants and the Roman Catholic Church. Luther's contribution to the doctrine of justification is huge because it sparked the Protestant Reformation and also became the core doctrine that many Christian believers center their faith upon. Luther's treatise on good works helped bring an understanding about the role of works in one's faith. Luther's contribution helps answer the question, how can I be right with God? How can a holy and righteous judge accept me, a sinner? The answer for Luther is simple. Through Jesus Christ, I am seen as righteous before God. The answer isn't you aren't quite there. You need to do some more good works, or do your time in another place. Luther's justification brought the teachings of the Bible back to the forefront. Luther so strongly believed the importance of this doctrine that he stated, "This doctrine, justification by faith, is the head and cornerstone. It alone begets, nourishes, builds, preserves, and defends the Church of God. And without it, the Church of God cannot exist for an hour." Well written, Jeremy. I'd just like to close my speech on Luther's justification with just the excerpt from my book. On page 509 out of 700, it says, "Finally, Luther emphasized, every Christian who is truly contrite has plenary remission, both of penance and of guilt, and his due, even without an indulgence. It was for this reason that he counted the Church's claim to the treasure of the saints with another treasure, the holy gospel of the glory and grace of God." Luther ushered in justification by faith, at a time when it was tough. Thank you for having me.